There were two plates on the table, one with reheated lasagna, one untouched. The chair across from me was still slightly angled, like someone had nearly sat down, then changed their mind. The wine in her glass hadn't been poured by me. She did that before leaving, like a cruel joke, a full glass standing witness to her absence. I didn't eat much. I never do when she's with him. I say with him because there's no point pretending anymore. It used to be her old friend, then her ex, then just Rory. But none of that matters when she chooses to spend the night at his party instead of coming home. At 6:47 p.m., I sent her a text that read, "Still planning to be back tonight?" It remained unread. At 7:22 p.m., the neighbor's dog started barking. I looked out the window like some hopeful idiot. Just wind. Just the streetlights turning on. Just the world moving along while I sat with two plates and a head full of noise. By 8 p.m., I'd memorized every groove in the wood grain of our kitchen table. It wasn't even about jealousy anymore. It was about something quieter, colder, like a draft you can't find but keeps touching your skin. That feeling of being erased in real time. Every time she laughed at his joke. Every time she poured another drink. Every time she didn't text back. Around 9:13 p.m., I opened the drawer beneath the microwave. The one where we keep random things, expired coupons, dead batteries, old letters. I wasn't looking for anything, but I found something anyway. It was a photo of us. Not a fancy one. Just a candid I took with an old camera timer. We were both barefoot, eating pancakes on the floor after painting the living room. She had frosting on her nose. I looked ridiculous. And happy. God, I looked happy. I left that photo out, right in the center of her plate. Then I went upstairs. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't throw a fit. I just grabbed the one thing she never thought I'd take, the framed certificate from the first job I ever got out of college. The one she said made her proud. I left everything else behind, except the house key. That I placed inside her shoe at the front door. By the time she came home, long after midnight, her makeup was smudged and her laughter had faded into the echo of someone else's music. She opened the front door expecting silence. What she got was absence. And the silence, it wasn't mine anymore. The front door creaked open just after 1 a.m. I know because the hallway light was on a motion timer, and it flicked on automatically when she crossed the threshold. What she probably expected to see was me on the couch, maybe sulking, maybe watching old reruns, maybe waiting with a pathetic little question stuck to my lips like, "Did you have fun?" But I wasn't there. Not on the couch. Not in the bedroom. Not in the house. The first thing she probably noticed, besides the eerie stillness, was the cold air. I'd turned off the heating before I left. The second thing? Her wine glass, still full, sitting next to her untouched dinner plate, now stiff and dry. And then, right there in the center of her dinner plate, that photo. The one with her pancake smile and my paint-streaked forehead. The only evidence we'd ever been something other than what we'd become. I imagined she froze when she saw it. Not because of the picture itself, but because of what wasn't there. Me. And then she must have noticed the key. Tucked neatly in the toe of her red heel, the one she wears when she wants to feel powerful, seductive, unattainable. It's not the kind of place she'd ever expect to find something meaningful. But there it was, a silent message. You left first. When I think back, I still can't decide if I wanted to hurt her or simply disappear. It's a strange thing, hoping someone will feel your absence without causing them pain. But I knew if I confronted her, it would turn into another twisted back and forth. Her denying. Me over-explaining. Her sighing and checking her phone. Me apologizing for making a scene. No. This time, I didn't want her words. I wanted her silence to answer for once. She called me at 1:17 a.m. I watched the screen light up from the front seat of my car, parked under a gas station awning 20 miles out. I didn't pick up. She called again. And again. Eventually she left a voicemail. Her voice was shaky. Not drunk, not angry, confused. "Marv, I just got home. Where are you? Did something happen? Why is your drawer empty? Why is the photo on my plate? Call me. Please." That please wasn't soft. It was sharp. The kind of please someone uses when they realize they may have pushed too far but don't know how to pull it back. I didn't call her that night. I just sat there in my car, engine off, listening to the ticking of the cooling hood. I had nowhere to go. No plan. Just a thermos of cold coffee and a blanket I kept from college that still smelled like mothballs and old books. At some point around 2:40, she sent a text that simply read, "Did you leave me?" It didn't say, "Where are you?" or "Come home," or even "Let's talk." It was direct, raw, vulnerable in a way she hadn't been with me in years. But I didn't reply. Because I didn't leave her. Not exactly. She just finally noticed I was gone. Back at the house, I imagined she walked in circles. Open drawers. Open closets. Maybe checked the bathroom to see if my toothbrush was still there. It wasn't. I took it with me, not because I needed it, but because I wanted her to see the gap. Sometimes the biggest statement you can make is in what you remove. I don't know what she did the rest of the night. Maybe she slept on the couch. Maybe she cried. Maybe she poured out that wine and cursed herself. Or maybe, and this is the part one hate myself for, maybe she didn't feel anything. Maybe she laid down, turned to the side I used to sleep on, and finally enjoyed the space she'd been silently craving all this time. Either way, I didn't go back. Not the next morning. Not the day after. Not even when she left another voicemail with the words, "You're scaring me." Because the truth is, she hadn't been scared to lose me for months. She just never thought I'd actually walk out without making a sound. The third voicemail came around 6:12 a.m. I hadn't slept. I'd been in the parking lot of a 24-hour laundromat for hours, watching strangers come and go, their lives unbothered by my unraveling. I never knew how loud silence could get until that night. Her voice on the voicemail cracked in the first few seconds. "I don't know what's going on, Marvin. Why did you leave? If this is about the party, can we talk? Please. I'm in our room. You're not here. This doesn't make sense. Please come home." Then, a pause, long enough to make me think she'd hung up. But the recording kept going. I heard the creak of our mattress, the faint echo of her sob, and one word whispered like she thought I'd be able to hear it if I was just hiding in the next room. "Please." And I almost went back. I did. My hand hovered over the ignition like a coward looking for permission. But something stopped me. Not rage. Not pride. It was disappointment. A slow, acidic drip of disappointment that had eaten through me for too long. This wasn't about a party. It was about every moment leading up to it. Every time she dismissed me with a wave, rolled her eyes when I spoke, left text unanswered for hours while laughing at something on her screen, something I'd never be a part of. I drove instead. Not home. Not anywhere permanent. Just somewhere with moving scenery. The hum of tires on asphalt became a kind of anesthesia. I didn't even listen to music. The sound of the wind outside and the soft rattle of something loose in the glove box felt more appropriate. I passed a roadside diner around 7:30, pulled in mostly because I needed a bathroom, and ended up ordering the blandest omelet of my life. The waitress called me sweetie, not in a flirty way, but like she'd seen too many men in my condition before. She didn't ask questions when I stared blankly at my plate for 15 minutes. She just brought me a second cup of coffee and gave me a smile that said, "You'll figure it out. Or you won't." Back at the house, I imagined her moving through our home like it was suddenly a crime scene. Every object out of place. Every drawer partially opened. My sock drawer, empty. My shaving kit, gone. The framed photo from her dresser, missing. My hoodie, the one she always used to steal, removed from the coat rack. Not everything. Just enough to say, I was here. Now I'm not. Around 9:11 a.m., she sent a string of texts. The first one was defensive. "So you're just ghosting me now?" The second one was hostile. "After everything I've done for you?" The third one softened. "Marv, this isn't you. Please don't do this. Can we just talk?" The fourth made my chest tighten. "I'll tell Rory not to contact me again. I swear. Just come home." It was the first time she'd said his name without minimizing it. Rory. Not just a friend. Not, "You're being dramatic." She named him like she knew what it meant now. But I didn't reply. I couldn't. Because something inside me was still waiting for her to understand the real betrayal wasn't the party, or the late night, or even the silence. It was how small I'd become in her world. Like a piece of furniture she could lean on when tired, but forget existed once she left the room. By noon, she tried calling again. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I needed to protect what little was left of me. And that's when she did something I didn't expect. She posted a story on her social media, a blurry photo of our empty kitchen table. No caption. Just that one shot. I recognized the angle. She'd taken it from the stairwell, where she always used to pause on Sunday mornings, yawning, stretching, looking down at me with sleepy eyes. But this time, there was no me. Just that wine glass. Just the cold plate. Just that single photograph still resting on the ceramic. And that's when I realized she hadn't thrown it away. She'd left it there. Like she was waiting for it to move on its own. I didn't check her page. Not directly. But someone sent me the story, my cousin, Dylan, who barely even uses Instagram but saw it through a mutual. He messaged me one line, "You good, man?" and attached the screenshot. And there it was, our kitchen table, empty but not forgotten, a haunting still life of what used to be our normal. I stared at that image longer than I want to admit, because that single frame, with its eerie stillness and absence of people, said more than any of our recent conversations ever had. It was like she finally saw the void she'd carved around me and didn't know how to unmake it. I wanted to call her. God, I wanted to call her. Not to make up, not to yell, just to ask one simple question that had been clawing at me since she first mentioned going to Rory's party. Why him? Not, why not me? That would have been too self-pitying, even for me. No, what I needed was a reason. A crack in her story. Something to justify the ache in my chest. But I didn't pick up the phone. Instead, I booked a cheap motel 30 miles away, the kind with flickering hallway lights and vending machines that only accept quarters. The front desk clerk didn't ask for anything more than my ID and credit card. When I got to the room, I dropped onto the bed fully dressed, shoes and all, and stared at the ceiling fan spinning like it didn't care who was hurting beneath it. Around 4:30 p.m., something shifted. My phone buzzed, not a text, not a call. A notification. Security camera alert. Motion detected. Living room. That stopped me cold. I'd forgotten I even had the old indoor cam still plugged in. It was mostly a leftover from when I traveled for work and wanted to check on our dog before he passed away last year. I hadn't looked at the feed in months. I opened the app. The screen loaded slowly. When it finally came into focus, I saw her, Leona, standing in the middle of our living room like a statue. Her hair was pulled up, but messily, like she'd been running her hands through it all day. She was wearing my hoodie, the same one she used to steal on cold mornings. She walked to the table, sat in my chair, and leaned forward, her elbows planted, head in her hands. Then, after a few seconds, she spoke. I hadn't even realized the mic was on. "You're probably watching this," she said softly, almost to herself. "I don't know if you're in a hotel or parked on the side of some highway, or if you're with someone who actually listens to you. But if you're watching, I need you to hear me." She paused, took a breath. Her fingers trembled. "I didn't stay at Rory's house. Not the way you think. Yes, I went to the party. Yes, I stayed too late. But I left alone. I took a walk afterward because I was angry. At you. At myself. At everything. I didn't cheat on you, Marvin. I thought about it. And I hated that I thought about it. But I didn't." Another pause. This one longer. Her voice cracked. "You stopped looking at me like I mattered. And I stopped acting like I cared. I blamed you. You blamed yourself. And somewhere in that mess, we forgot how to just see each other. I don't want that to be the end of us. But I also know I don't get to ask you to come back. Not after the way I made you feel like background noise." I watched in silence as she reached forward, picked up the photo, the same one I left on her plate, and pressed it to her chest. "If you decide this is over, I'll understand. I really will. But if there's even the smallest chance that you're willing to let me try, I'll be here. I'll keep this house exactly the way it was when you left. Because I don't want to clean you out of it. I want to earn the right to invite you back into it." Then she stood, walked out of frame. The feed ended. For a moment, I just sat there, in that cheap motel room with the buzzing light and the stale air, staring at a blank screen. I didn't feel vindicated or triumphant. I just felt tired. Tired of wondering what parts of her were real and which parts one had invented just to survive the distance. But one thing stuck with me. One line. One admission she probably didn't even realize held that much weight. I thought about it. It echoed. It gnawed. And that's when I realized maybe it wasn't what she did. Maybe it was the fact that she nearly wanted to. I didn't respond to the video message. I couldn't. Not right away. I watched it twice, then turned off the app and stared at the beige motel ceiling like it held answers in its cracks. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I just went numb again, that deep, frostbite kind of numb that doesn't scream or burn. It just eats from the inside until all feeling becomes background noise. Somewhere in the blur between guilt and confusion, I found myself opening my old email inbox. The one I hadn't used in years, tied to a burner account I made back in college for Craigslist furniture purchases and the occasional online poker sign-up. And I typed a name, Rory C. Ellison. It wasn't out of obsession. It was instinct, the same instinct that tells you to check the locks twice when you know they're already latched. I wasn't looking for proof that she lied. I just needed to see who he really was. Because up until that moment, Rory was a vague figure, a ghost from her past who had become flesh again, pulling at our marriage like gravity. But I didn't know him. Not really. So I searched, found an old LinkedIn, some public social profiles. He was a fitness consultant now, divorced, hosted social health mixers at his house once a month, basically party workshops where people drank kombucha and shared gym stories while pretending not to flirt. But the thing that stopped me cold was this. On his business Instagram, dated 3 weeks ago, he'd posted a photo. Just a normal group shot of him and a bunch of his clients smiling on his deck. And there, slightly in the background, was Leona. Not front and center. Not clinging to him, but unmistakably her. Wearing the green jacket she always claimed made her look too serious, and smiling, that smile I hadn't seen directed at me in maybe 2 years. I zoomed in. The way her shoulder tilted toward him, even unconsciously. The way his eyes found her even though he wasn't smiling at the camera. I didn't need anything else. I closed the app and deleted my browser history. It's not that I thought she slept with him. That wasn't the dagger. It was the realization that while I had been analyzing dinner receipts and wondering why she took longer showers, they had already re-entered orbit. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. Emotionally enough for her to smile like that. The kind of smile you reserve for someone who makes you feel seen again. I left the motel just after 10 p.m. Drove back toward the city, but not home. Not yet. I parked near the old bridge on Roosevelt Avenue, the one where we used to sneak sandwiches during lunch breaks back when money was tight and life was simple. I sat there in the dark, windows cracked open just enough to hear the wind and the occasional distant siren. And that's when I saw him. Not Rory. My own reflection, not in the mirror, but in the windshield glass. I didn't recognize him. Hollowed eyes. Beard unkempt. Shirt stretched at the collar. This wasn't me anymore. This was the version of me she forgot how to love. I don't know how long I stayed there, but at some point, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a voicemail, not from Leona. From someone else. A man. The voice was unfamiliar at first, but it introduced itself quickly. Hey, Marvin, this is Lucas. I know this is weird, man. I used to work with Leona. I got your number through a mutual friend. I wasn't sure whether to say anything, but I saw the post she made. The story. I was at the party. That night. I thought you should know. She left early. Real early. She didn't stay with Rory. I mean, he flirted. He always flirts. But she looked wrecked. She left alone. Look, I don't want to get in your business, but I saw how she looked when someone mentioned your name. She didn't look like someone trying to escape. She looked like someone who already knew what she lost. He paused, exhaled, then added, I think she regrets it, man. Whatever it is. Click. I replayed it 3 times. Not because I needed confirmation, but because it was the first time anyone outside our marriage had ever acknowledged I existed. For months, I had been invisible, even to her. But now, for the first time, someone said I mattered to her. But it still didn't change what I saw in that photo, or what I heard in her voice when she said she thought about it. And I couldn't shake the question, the one that followed me like a shadow into the next night. If I go back, will I ever trust her smile again? It was raining when I pulled up to the house. Not a dramatic storm, no cinematic thunder, just that steady, whispering kind of rain that coats the windows and turns the world into a blur. I sat in the car with the engine off, hands gripping the steering wheel like it might try to run without me. The lights were off inside, except for the hallway lamp she always left on overnight, a habit from when she used to say, it makes the house feel safe. I hadn't been inside in 4 days, but I'd rehearsed this moment in my head at least 100 times. In most of those versions, I'd walk in, she'd be in tears, I'd say something devastatingly cold, and she'd beg. In others, I'd leave the door open, speak from the hallway, keep one foot outside like I wasn't sure if I belonged anymore. But none of those versions played out when I finally got out of the car and walked toward the door. I didn't knock. I used my key, not the spare I gave to my brother, but the original she didn't realize I still carried on my old hiking backpack. The door unlocked quietly. Too quietly. The silence inside felt intentional, like a breath being held. I stepped inside and the air hit me like memory, the faint scent of her shampoo, the warmth of the heat now back on, the echo of a home that had been walked through but untouched, waiting. I expected her to be asleep. I was wrong. She was sitting at the kitchen table, the exact spot where I'd left the photo, except now the photo was framed, in a cheap silver frame, but positioned upright, facing the chair I usually occupied. She had her hands wrapped around a mug, not drinking from it, just holding it like a prop in a scene she didn't know how to end. Her eyes lifted as I walked in, but she didn't stand. She looked exhausted. Not mascara smeared, dramatic movie exhausted, just deeply hollowed out, like she hadn't been living in her body for a while. And neither of us said anything at first. The silence stretched long and thin. I thought she might break it with some pre-written apology, a speech rehearsed in the mirror, but she didn't. Instead, she gestured to the seat across from her. I hesitated, then sat. The chair creaked under my weight, a small, human sound that somehow made the moment feel more real. For a while, we just sat there. Two people who had shared beds, debts, flu seasons, and secrets, now reduced to eye contact and the hum of the refrigerator. Finally, she said, "You look thinner." I almost laughed. That's what she led with. Not, "Where were you?" or "I missed you," or "Please come back." Just an observation. It wasn't meant as affection. It was guilt in disguise. I didn't respond. She put the mug down, leaned forward slightly. "I know I broke something." Her voice didn't tremble. "And I'm not asking you to pretend I didn't. But I also know that you didn't leave because of Rory. You left because I let you fade. And I don't know how to undo that." That hit harder than I expected. Not because she was right, but because she finally stopped pretending I was the one who disappeared first. I wanted to speak. I had so many sentences queued up, full of rage, disappointment, loneliness, but they got stuck somewhere between my chest and my throat. All I managed was, "Do you regret it?" And she didn't ask what it meant. She knew. The party. The late nights. The attention. The 1,000 tiny dismissals. She nodded once. No tears. No performance. Just one small, almost imperceptible nod. "Yes," she said. "Not just the night. The months before it. The way I looked at you like you weren't enough. I regret all of it." I stared at the photo she'd framed. Us. On the floor with pancakes. It didn't even feel like a memory anymore, just a relic from another lifetime. And that's when I told her something I hadn't told anyone. I met someone. Not like that. I added quickly when her eyes flinched. Not romantic. Just a guy named Lucas. From your office. He was at the party. He told me you left early. That you didn't stay. That you looked like you regretted it before it even happened. Her fingers tightened slightly around the mug. "I didn't ask him to call you," she said. "I didn't even know he knew where you'd gone." I believed her. And somehow, that made it harder. Because if she had orchestrated the message, it would have been manipulative. But she didn't. Which meant she'd been drowning quietly, without baiting sympathy. I stood up. She did too, instinctively. Like the scene had shifted and we both felt it. But I didn't embrace her. I didn't even move closer. I said, "I don't know what happens next." Her eyes didn't waver. "Neither do I," she whispered. And then I walked past her, not toward the door, but toward the guest room, the one we always said we'd turn into an office. I closed the door behind me, sat on the old futon, and stared at the unfamiliar ceiling. I didn't come back to forgive her. I didn't come back to stay. I came back to see if the version of her that used to love me still existed in this house. And if she did, I needed to find out whether I could still recognize her when she smiled. I didn't sleep much that night. The guest room felt like a stranger's den, cold, undecorated, smelling faintly of dust and unopened paint cans. The futon groaned with every breath I took, and my body remained stiff, caught between needing rest and refusing surrender. Around 3 a.m., I heard soft movement, not the kind of clumsy noise people make when they're trying to be quiet, but something intentional, controlled. I didn't move. I just listened. The hallway creaked. Her shadow passed under the door crack, lingered for a moment like she was debating whether to knock, and then it vanished. No knock. No whisper. Just absence again. It was almost poetic at that point, the way silence kept doing the talking in our marriage. When morning light began to slide through the closed blinds, I found a folded towel, a new toothbrush still in the packaging, and a cup of black coffee placed neatly on the small desk in the corner. No note. Just quiet kindness. That's when I noticed something else. On the desk sat a familiar envelope. My handwriting on it. The one I'd left behind, the photo, the letter, the remnants of our old laughter. She'd placed it there exactly as I had given it to her, unopened. She hadn't read it. Not yet. That fact landed on me like a brick in a still pond. I stared at it for a long time, wondering if that was her way of showing restraint or fear, or maybe it was her way of saying, "I'll only open it when you're sure you won't take it back." I didn't go downstairs right away. I showered first, not because I needed it, but because standing under hot water gave me a place to breathe without thinking. When I finally emerged, the kitchen was quiet. But she was there, sitting in the same chair. Same mug. This time, her phone lay face down, turned off. The blinds were half open, letting in a light that made everything look too honest. She didn't greet me. I didn't greet her. But she'd made eggs. Toast. Nothing fancy. Just food you make when you don't know what else to do. I sat across from her. We didn't eat. We just stared. Two ghosts in daylight. Then she did something unexpected. She stood, walked to the drawer where we kept the important papers, tax forms, birth certificates, insurance stuff, and she pulled out a sealed envelope. White. Crisp. She placed it in front of me and slid it across the table without a word. I opened it slowly, half expecting some dramatic reveal. Instead, I found a bank receipt. A printed record showing a full transfer, her savings moved into a new joint account, with both our names on it. I don't want separation, she said quietly, eyes fixed on the table. But if you do, that's your half. You don't have to ask. I didn't know what to say. She wasn't bargaining. She wasn't begging. She was surrendering something, power, maybe, or control. It wasn't the money. It was what it symbolized, that she finally saw the weight of being unequal, unheard, unloved. That I wasn't asking to be adored or chased, just seen. After breakfast, she disappeared into the upstairs hallway. I remained in the kitchen, staring at the receipt. I should have felt validated, powerful, but instead, I felt stripped bare. Because when someone stops fighting you and just accepts your absence, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like mourning. A few hours passed. She didn't text, didn't come back downstairs, and for once, I didn't chase. I walked the house, not like an owner reclaiming his space, but like someone walking through a museum of memories they're no longer a part of. The bedroom still held the dent in the pillow where I used to sleep. The hallway smelled like the old cedar candle she'd stopped lighting months ago. The bookshelf still had the novel I never finished, spine cracked at chapter 11. Everything was exactly where I'd left it, untouched. And that was the apology. Not in a letter, not in a speech, but in the way she hadn't moved a single thing. Not the framed photo, not the laundry basket, not even my jacket on the back of the door. She hadn't tried to clean me out of the house like people do when they're angry. She'd frozen everything in place, as if breaking the stillness might shatter whatever small thread of hope remained. That night, I sat alone in the living room. I didn't turn on the TV, didn't scroll my phone. I just sat in the silence she used to drown me with, only now it felt different. Like maybe, just maybe, it was turning into something else. Not peace. Not yet. But readiness. And then, from upstairs, I heard the first sound she'd made in hours, the soft closing of a book. I didn't even know she was reading again. I spent that evening on the living room floor. Not out of drama or discomfort, but because I needed to sit somewhere that didn't already hold memories of arguments, of cold shoulders, of one sleeping figure and one lying awake. The rug beneath me still had a faint wine stain from our 3rd anniversary, back when she laughed so hard she knocked the glass over mid-toast. That night, her laugh had echoed through the walls. Lately, her silence did. And now, I found myself tracing that faded spot with my fingers like it held some kind of clue. She didn't come down after dinner. She didn't check on me or send a text. And strangely, I didn't want her to. It was the first time I'd felt like space wasn't punishment. It was oxygen. Around midnight, I got up and went to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water. I stood by the window, staring at the dark street outside. And I thought about what it meant to come home to the same walls and find them unfamiliar. To hear her voice but not recognize who it belonged to anymore. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I just accepted it, that maybe the version of us we missed had already died quietly while we were both looking the other way. But just as I turned to head back to the guest room, I saw something that stopped me cold. A piece of paper. Folded. Resting on the armrest of the couch. My name written across the front in her handwriting. I opened it slowly. No grand confession. No poetic apology. Just a question, scrawled in careful letters. If we start over, can we meet again as strangers who decide to love each other better? Below it, a second line, this one shakier. If not, I'll understand. But I'll still keep the photo up. That hit me harder than any argument ever could. Because love doesn't beg. It invites. And for the first time in a long time, I felt invited, not pulled, not chased, not guilt, but quietly, honestly invited to try again. I stood there a long time, holding that paper, watching the way her pen had pressed harder into the word better. It wasn't love each other again. It was love each other better. As if even she didn't want what we had, she wanted something new, something rebuilt, something chosen. I walked upstairs. Slowly. Her door was half open. A warm glow poured out, The old yellow lamp she used for reading. She was in bed, book resting on her chest, breathing steady. Not asleep. Just still. Her eyes met mine as I leaned on the doorframe. She didn't sit up. Didn't speak. Just looked at me the way someone looks when they're terrified they've ruined everything but still have enough hope to stay seated. I read the note, I said quietly. She nodded. I don't want to go back, I added. To before. To what we were. Her eyes darkened for a second. But I kept speaking. I want to try what we never had the guts to build. Something honest. Something where silence isn't punishment. Where mistakes are owned before they're forgiven. This time, she sat up. And in a voice barely louder than a breath, she asked, do you want to come lie down? Not, do you forgive me? Not, will you stay? Just space. A beginning. I nodded. And I crossed the room not as a broken husband crawling back, and not as a man giving in, but as someone who chose to stay, not out of fear or habit, but because he finally saw in her eyes that